Kim Rozdeba. Welcome to the Bookaholic podcast.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this, and I look forward to talking to you.
Yes, and I look forward to talking to you about your wonderful book. And your book is called Branding Queens, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, and so we're going to dive into that in just a little bit. But first, we want to see, why did you want to write a book about women branding queens throughout history? What drew you to that?
So, Deirdre, I write periodically a blog on branding,
Mhm.
and I have a full-time job just like you. So when I have the time, I like to write about different types of brands and who builds brands. And
Mhm.
I came across a book, and it was about Veuve Clicquot, the champagne,
Yes.
Barbara Nicole Clicquot, and I didn't realize that Veuve, which is French, means
Yes.
widow.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I started going, okay, why would you put widow on a bottle of champagne? And so I had to go back in time, and I discovered that Barbara Nicole, started with her husband, and he passed away. And
Mhm.
she continued to build this business, which is one of the iconic brands today. And
Yes.
so that started me, as I thought I was doing a blog. I did not think I was writing a book. I had no plans to ever write a book.
Yeah.
I was happy doing a blog. I was
Right.
able to do a blog, every couple of weeks or months. Uh, but this story started me going and going. Are there other women out there that I'm not aware of that built iconic brands? So that
Yeah.
was my journey. And it took me almost 3 years, a
Oh,
fair bit
wow.
of research, going back to 1810. I mean, brands have been around for, thousands of years, but really
Mhm.
marketing brands really didn't start until the printing press and all the things that happened from a communications perspective. So I went back as far as 1810. And
Mhm.
the youngest brand that I have in the book is 2004, which is Tory Burch.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, first of all, let me thank you for pronouncing Veuve Clicquot. Did I say it right? Veuve Clicquot. Say it again for us.
Veuve.
Veuve Clicquot.
And I may have it incorrect too. So don't follow my lead. I'm not French.
Well, you this is the best that I've ever heard, because I have been searching for a very long time to hear someone pronounce that, and I always hesitate on asking for it actually at a restaurant, because I'm afraid I don't want to be embarrassed, and so I'm headed to Paris later on this summer.
So
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 I just wanted to check.
all you have to say is I'll have the widow.
Oh, wow. But still, that is very, very kind of freaky that, that she would name that the widow. And what does Clicquot mean?
That's her last name. So
Oh, that's
so
right. That's right.
that's her
That's right.
last name. So
Okay.
I
Oh,
so
she named it after herself.
yeah, but
Oh,
but
wow.
but
Okay. Got it.
why
Got it.
add
Got it.
widow? And that was my quest to just try and find out. And you'll have to read the book as
Yes.
to why she put widow on the front. I thought at the
Hmm.
beginning that it might be some sort of legality, something
Hmm.
that she had to do from a legal perspective, but that's not the
Right.
case. That's not the case.
Ah, well, we'll have, like you said, we'll have to read the book as to why she did that. Hmm. Well, well, now you do have a background yourself in communications and branding and all these types of things, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I've
Yeah.
been working I I started way back when working in marketing. I went to an advertising agency. I worked in a number of agencies, worked on a number of international brands as well as local nonprofit brands as well, small brands. And then I went to a Fortune 500, and I'm actually head of communications for Canada right now.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. And so this was kind of sort of a natural flow for you because this is something that you do every day and you're, in on branding all the time. So it's kind of like a natural flow into that.
I am obsessed with brands, in the sense of trying to figure out why that connection exists with customers. There's a spark, right? There's a bit of
Mhm.
magic, there's a bit of science, and there's a bit of art into building a brand. Uh, I like to I sort of take off of a quote from Maya Angelou in my definition of what a brand is. And a brand
Mhm.
isn't about what it says or does, but how it makes its customers feel. And
Yes.
so I that's to me that's the foundation. And when you get to that emotional connection, it's really hard to connect all the dots.
Yes, 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 exactly. And I know the quote that you are taking that from with Maya Angelou, and you are so correct with that. Well, now let's talk about brands in this digital age before we go into your 5 C's and some more branding queens. Right now, the internet is full of brands. There's micro influencers, there's the macro influencers, there's brands everywhere we turn. You go to Instagram, there's an influencer. You go to Facebook, Pinterest, all around you, you're surrounded by what seems to be or was everyday people. And, if you can intrigue people on TikTok with your antics, with your personal life antics, you have a brand. If you're showing fashions or promoting books and the love of books, you are a brand. What do you think about this new digital age brand slash influencers?
We are inundated. I've seen different research out there from 3,000 to 5,000 different brands that are we get exposed to every day. I mean,
Wow.
these are unreal numbers. Uh,
Yes.
to me, it's a lot of noise
Mm-hmm.
because we cannot have a relationship with every one of these brands that we connect with, or we don't
Right.
even connect with, that we actually just um, uh, interact with, because a
Mm-hmm.
connection is
Mm-hmm.
something far deeper than just an interaction. And I think we see what we want to see, we hear what we want to see, so we connect with things that are important to us.
Right.
I'll give you an example. I was in a department store, and I'll get to your question. I was in a
Mm.
department store, and I walked into the store, and I walked around, and I go, "Wow!" I said, "Did you guys just open up?" And the lady looked at me. She smiled. She said, "Oh, you must be a new father." And I go, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, we've been here since the mall opened, and it was a children's store, and I was indeed a new father." And so
Okay.
I was not interested in
Right.
you know baby things. I
Right.
didn't need them, so I never saw it. I walked by it, I
Right.
don't know how many times. So from a
Right.
digital perspective, we do the same. We are, we deal with the things that are important to us. We like to be entertained. I think the word brand is overused, uh,
Mhm.
and it's being used for a lot of different things. I mean,
Right.
being famous, yes, you can become a brand if you actually start thinking about it as a brand. Uh, I
Right.
I love the quote that brands are trying to become more like humans, and humans are trying to become more like brands.
Oh, wow.
And and
Wow.
and what that means is we're trying to be two-dimensional. To be honest, I
Mm.
mean, if you really want to be a brand, as you said, we're going to talk about the 5 C's. There is a
Mhm.
structure that's required to build a brand. There's some things that you have to do consistently.
Mhm.
And as human beings, we're far bigger than a brand.
Right. 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 And bigger. Well, yeah, because we have emotions, we have all of these different things that we can do as people as opposed to a brand.
We are very complex. We have
Yes.
we're multifaceted with different things and talents.
Right.
A
Right.
brand
Right.
is very focused. It has
Right.
a single promise.
Right. Right. Right.
I
Right.
promise something to my kids very differently than I promise to my boss.
Yeah. Yes. Correct. 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 Well, if you could, let's delve into the 5 C's of branding. I would like to hear those. What are the five? First of all, just to name
All right.
them.
So the 5 C's, the first one is commitment. It's really the why. The second one is the construct. This is the what. The
Okay.
construct is sort of the logo, it's the name. The third one is the community. And the community does include your customer, but it's much bigger than just your customer. And the
Mhm.
third
Mhm.
one, or sort of the fourth one, is context.
Okay.
And this is our sort of content. This is sort of the things that you always think of from a marketing perspective. It's all the communication channels. It's all the connectivities to get to the customer and communicate your messaging. And then the
Mhm.
final one, which is the hardest one, I think,
Mm.
is consistency. And
Oh, yeah.
consistency is that Oprah Winfrey, who's in the book, she had said at one point that she was not a brand. She vehemently said, "I am not a brand. I'm a human being." And there was a point in her career that she said, "You know what? I am a brand. And the reason that I'm a brand is because I am consistent. Every time I get onto a stage, I am a consistent performer and I am consistent in my messaging and how she's built that is on that trust level. And to be consistent, to help build the trust, you have to have that consistency."
Yes, and she does indeed. And so when you said consistency, I immediately thought about myself. And I'm consistent on my podcast and my videos, my video interviews, very consistent, but I'm lacking in consistency with my blog. And I need to get that up. I need to get that up as much as I get my podcast audio and video podcast up. And it's hard. It's a struggle,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
So,
know,
I mean,
and then go ahead.
absolutely. I was just going to say, if you think of a retail outlet like Starbucks, for example, around the world, and you walk in, your expectation is exactly the same of the Starbucks that you have down the road from where you live to the one that,
Correct.
as you said, if you're going to Paris, you're going to expect the same experience, the same quality, uh, and that consistency. How does that happen? There's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen behind the scenes to ensure that
Yes.
consistency. Everything from the
Yes.
logo being right on the cup to the person delivering it to you and the message that they're going to provide while they deliver
Yes.
that product to you.
Yes. Most definitely. You are so correct. Now, the trust factor, which C did that fall under?
So I'm careful to say trust is built through all of them.
Oh, okay.
Because at the end of the day, if you're schizophrenic, you have a split personality, and one day you walk in and you get one experience, and the next day you walk in, you get another experience. You look at one ad versus another ad and go, "This doesn't even sound like the same company."
Right, right, right,
That
right, exactly.
all the pieces build trust. Right?
Right, right,
It's all those touch points. So when you're doing you go online, you go to the website, the experience you have on the website, if there's a e-commerce activity there, and you wait now for the delivery, all of those pieces build that trust. If
right.
something goes out of whack and you call the call center and you sit online for an hour, that's not building trust.
No, it's not. It is not. That's correct. There's so many aspects to go into that trust.
Right.
And I definitely feel like consistency is one of those ways they can rely on your content. For an example, using
Right.
myself,
Right. So
so definitely.
So we got to be careful with consistency because airlines are very consistent right now of not getting you to the place on time.
Correct, correct. And then they have the bane of my travel existence is in America, at least, the TSA.
Yes.
They are just terrible. And so that's in front of the air, that falls into your whole flying experience. So I don't know what they need to do about all of that because it's a
Right.
whole thing.
Right. So I'm going to just maybe step back a bit and what I've learned from these 20 women in the book, Branding Queens. When I first started it, I was looking to see if I could measure each branding queen on the strength of the 5 C's. And I thought, oh,
Mm.
this will be really great. I'll be able to
Mhm.
sort of analyze each one. And again,
Mhm.
analyzing is very subjective in trying to analyze as to whether they're stronger in the commitment versus the consistency. And what I found in all 20 is that to be an iconic brand, you have to be top on all 5. You can't just, or sorry, yeah, 5, sorry. You can't
Mhm.
just be good at one. And
Right.
I found in all of these women that they were absolutely on the top of their game in all 5.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, let's talk about two of these brands. We've already touched on the widow, and you've given us a glimpse of that. And to mention about her, she was in a very what I would think is a heavily male dominated area.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there was a lot of women producing wines and champagnes at the time that she was involved.
There were actually women that were,
Oh, they were.
there were not a lot. Uh, the problem was men didn't live very long
Oh.
back in history. So there were actually some cases where women did take over for a time. None of them were as strong as Barbara Nicole in building the brand. I mean, she was an incredible woman. She
Mm.
she invented the riddling system. And it's probably too much for this conversation in the sense of what
Mhm.
is the riddling system, but it
Mhm.
allowed the system that she came up with allowed to clear, because there's two fermentations that take place in making champagne, and that's why it gets the bubbles in the second fermentation. The problem when you
Oh.
get the bubbles in the fermentation is you get residuals. So you get a very cloudy, there's sediment that is developed at the
Right.
bottom of the bottle. So you have to get that out before you cork it uh,
Okay.
and before you bottle it and sell it. And so
Right.
that was a problem back in the day. And so what they
Oh,
had to do is they poured sort of one from another bottle to another. That was a long, tedious process. And she
I can see that.
discovered how to actually do it by putting the bottle upside down. And that's why you see some of these riddling racks and you see the
Mhm.
bottle going down.
Mhm.
So all the sediment went into the neck of the bottle. And then all you
Mhm.
had to do is take the temporary cork out. It would come shooting out because it's under pressure. And
Right.
then you put the cork back on. You put a little bit more product in and you put the
Right.
cork back. She saved huge amount of time, as well
Wow.
as made really good champagne that was very clear, crystal clear, which is
Yes.
what we expect today.
That's
And that
right.
system is still used today. Now
Wow.
it's gone into a manufacturing process, but
Yeah.
wasn't all, back then it was all by hand. But I mean, this is a system that we use still today, and she was the one that invented that.
Wow, incredible. And not a lot of people think about something like that. They just take for granted, hey, here's a bottle of champagne and I can afford it. But that's how you get the high quality
Yeah,
of that champagne.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. So now let's talk about two other branding queens in your book. And I want to pull to this Elizabeth Arden. Now, the reason why I'm selecting her for one is because a lot of younger people may not be familiar with Elizabeth Arden, but certainly she was extremely important to the beauty industry. And I do know even though I've never seen it in person, I do know and have always heard about the red door. And so that was an iconic thing. So before we go into why she's a branding queen, first of all, just tell us a little bit about Elizabeth Arden and the time frame she was in.
Okay. So she was a Canadian. That
Oh,
was
I
the
didn't know
first thing.
that. I thought she
She
was a New Yorker.
she was born in Canada, just north of Toronto.
Okay.
And she lived, I think, it was a kind of like a farm. Her father was a gardener, and I think he had some horses. I'm not sure, but she lived in a rural community. Her brother actually had moved to New York City, and so she had. I think she was a nurse at one time as well. I mean, her maiden, or actually her original name was
Mhm.
Florence Nightingale Graham. That was her name. And
Wow.
she went to New York City, and she started working in New York City, working for a cosmetic company, doing facials
Mhm.
for a number of companies there, and then she started her own business.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things, again, from a commitment, she always said that what she was committed to doing is selling is, I'm selling hope.
Mhm.
So, we would go, okay, you're selling, a facial cream. No, she was selling a jar of hope.
Yes.
So she
Yeah.
saw the big picture right from day
Yes.
one.
Yes. 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 She sure did. She sure did. Now,
And
so her first specialty was skincare, correct?
yeah, was
Mhm.
she had products that she started, and she also had a facial, would do facials for women. So she had a salon as well that women came into, and then she
Mhm.
sold the products to these women, and then she actually
Mhm.
moved on from there beyond that. There's an interesting story on how did the name come. So I mean, Florence.
Yeah.
Uh,
Florence
Florence Night
Nightingale.
Nightingale was, already, a famous name
That's
from
right.
a nurse, but she actually started her business with another woman whose first name was Elizabeth, and
Oh,
they had both their names on the salon, and
okay.
her partner left. And she took over, and she thought, well, okay, Florence is not really a great name. So she left Elizabeth because she saved money by
Yeah.
not having to change Elizabeth. And she liked
Right.
Elizabeth. It was, there's a royalty aspect to Elizabeth.
That's
And
right.
Arden came from, at the time, there was a poem called Arden. In actual fact, at the time, that poem had been actually produced into a movie. And the
Oh,
movie was a black and white silent movie, because we're now talking back in the early 1900s.
okay.
She started a business in 1910.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so anyways, that movie was playing at the time, and it's about a fellow who goes off in a to the sea on a ship, and he never comes back. And
Oh,
his
no.
wife, after 4 or 5 years, uh, remarries, and then he comes back.
Of course. Of course he does. Wow. Okay, now why the red door?
The red door. So one of the things that she was important to her was being noticed, and all of these branding queens, they were all really good at, public relations, getting
Mhm.
noticed, being unique. They all had to think of different ways to break out from the norm, and one of the things that she did was paint the front door red. So the salon door was red, and every place that they opened outside of a mall had a red door, and that red door was well, become synonymous with the brand.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, most definitely, and as I said earlier, of course, I was a child, but you always heard about the red door, the Elizabeth Arden red door. I mean, articles that were written, that's how you knew of it. And I never saw it
Yeah.
in person.
Yeah.
So you knew about it. So, that goes into that whole branding thing.
Yeah.
Now, going to another historical figure that is definitely important to me and my female ancestors is Madam C.J. Walker. And why did you select Madam C.J. Walker?
Well, she was an iconic brand as well through history. She was 1906 was when she
Mm-hmm.
started her brand. She was
Mm-hmm.
also the first Black woman to become a millionaire in
Mm-hmm.
North America. So she
Right.
stood out. She was also in cosmetics. Actually, she started off with hair products,
Yes.
and
Yes.
at the time, uh, back then, there were not a lot of washrooms, and there was not a lot of running water
Right. Right.
facilities for particularly Black women to wash
Mm-hmm.
their hair.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of hygiene problems and there
Mm-hmm.
would be hair loss. Uh,
Right.
and so she came up, and the formula that she came up with was actually a formula that was out in the marketplace. So it wasn't as if she's not a scientist,
Right.
um, but she came up with this product that she had. And the other unique thing that she did was she got other women, other Black women who
Mhm.
were not, probably doing similar to what she was doing. She was washing clothes for other people. That's
Right.
how she was making her money.
Right.
And she wanted to help other women, particularly Black women, in their communities to rise up and have a proper job and
Right.
make money. So
Right.
she hired all of these women. And what was funny, well, I don't know if it was funny, she would be selling the product to these women, and then she would actually get them to become salespeople to work with her.
Yes.
So
Yes.
she
Yeah.
built this team of salespeople. She was one of
Mhm.
the first to actually open up her own university, and it was a
Mhm.
university to help educate these women and educate them on everything from not just how to sell the products that she had, but
Right.
also how to dress, how to
Yeah.
look, how to be professional, and so she the interesting thing with a lot of these women is that they actually started with brands that cared. And
Right.
that today is what you're always hearing today is, it's important to give back, to be socially conscious with your brand. These
Mhm.
these
Mhm.
were these were entrepreneurs who were already doing this way back in the early 1900s.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, they certainly are some very dynamic and fantastic women that you have brought to our view or and reintroduced to us. And I definitely think this is a book for younger people to read because a lot of these women are, dynamic and were in the 19th century and early 20th century. And it's just incredible what they were able to do as women and as maybe minority women to get their message and their brands out there. It took a lot of guts, first of all, to even begin every single one of these projects that you're talking about in this book. And so again, this is your one and only book so far. Do you visualize that you'll be writing any more?
So I'm halfway through writing my second book, and
Okay.
the second book really is on the five C's. When I
Okay.
when I had written the first one, the Branding Queens, I had a lot of theory in there. I had a lot of instructional information on the five C's, and what my beta reader said was, oh, I don't know, this is a lot of branding stuff in here. We really like the stories of the women. so
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I pulled back on the sort of the instructional material. And so the second book really is going to be on how to build a brand,
Okay.
and using the 5 C's. So I will, there'll still be lots of stories, because I think there's this fascination of how does a
Mhm.
brand actually get started, because it's a journey. Branding
Yes.
is not a goal; it's a journey. So there's
Yes.
always lots of interesting stories, and that is the second book. So I'm about halfway through that. I hope by the end of this year I'll hopefully get that finished.
Well, we certainly look forward to that. And definitely, we will have Kim's information in the podcast show notes and in the video description box below the YouTube channel. Kim, we certainly appreciate you for joining us today and look forward to reading Branding Queens.
Deidre, it's been a pleasure talking to you today.